Hey, Brian, how's it going? This is Dave. Um, Tom is traveling tonight, so he is not available. This will just be a solo show with me. So hopefully it doesn't suck too bad. I know when it's both of us, Tom and I on here, we kind of get going back and forth, which makes it longer, but we kind of bail each other out sometimes. So hopefully this doesn't suck too bad. But hopefully also it's a shorter show, so we'll see how it goes. I may pause for a couple times, um, just to take a sip of water or something. So I may need a little extra cleanup, but I'll let you know how bad that is necessarily. So with that, we'll just get this thing rolling. All right, thanks. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Alabama Football Podcast. Tom is traveling for a family holiday this week, so you're getting Dave solo. Probably a little less in-depth back and forth, but probably a shorter episode. So let's jump in and see where it goes. All right, just right off the top, I just want to scratch that. Shit, I hope I don't do that too many times. Shit. All right, here we go. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Alabama Football Podcast. Tom is traveling, so you get Dave solo tonight. Less in-depth back and forth, probably a shorter episode, but more of my takes, what I saw against Alabama playing UTC on Saturday. So let's jump right in. No holds barred. Alabama's most I can't even say it, most lethargic performance since week two's outing against Western Kentucky. That was kind of a sandwich game between USC and Ole Miss, so you can kind of understand the letdown here. This is week 11, so maybe you give a little bit of a pass there. Hard to call it a sandwich game with Mississippi State and Auburn, but certainly an opportunity to look ahead to Auburn. You know, I don't read too much into the bad performance. If you want to call it the worst performance of the year or the most lethargic performance, I'm not going to argue with you, but it was still 31-3. It's a 28-point outing. And so who rolls out a stinker that's a 28-point win? Well, I guess Alabama does. Especially when you think about all of the chaos really that's taking place across college football. All the teams that are losing games that they shouldn't lose, Michigan, Ohio State, Louisville, Clemson, Washington, and West Virginia have all dropped games that you would argue they should not lose. Texas, I know they're having a little bit of a down year this season, but the game that's going to cost Charlie Strong his job is losing to Kansas for the first time in almost 80 years. So, again, you look at teams that struggle and put up a subpar performance, they lose games. Alabama wins it by 28. So it's hard to feel too bad. And I certainly don't feel as bad about the performance tonight as I did Saturday night walking out of the stadium. Let's jump into some of the things that we saw on offense and sort of break some of those down. For my money, it's hard to really pinpoint a cause for the lethargic play. You could there's sort of three prongs here that you could argue. You could go straight up, just the team not being into the game. And that's a fair point, playing a UTC again with Auburn next week, with all the praise that's been heaped upon this team. It wouldn't be hard for them to think that they could just roll their helmets out there and put up a big win. Is it play calling and game planning? I probably have a little bit of a bone to pick with those two items. But, hey, if the team is not take the line, for example, if they're not out blocking and they're not out playing at sort of peak performance, then it doesn't matter what you call. You're going to struggle. So, that's sort of a chicken or egg. And then, let's talk about Jalen's performance. I love the kid. I absolutely love the kid. We're getting some feedback. Why are you guys sort of dumping on Jalen? I'm going to tell you, that's not me. I love the kid. I love his poise. I love what he brings to the table. I have not historically been a fan of running quarterbacks, but I get it. I get that that is how the game is changing. That's how the game is evolving. And I get that that's how you play true 11 on 11 football when you have a quarterback who is a legitimate threat. So I'm not opposed to it as maybe Tom is, or maybe as others are. I will say that we're not seeing the whole Jalen. We're seeing certainly his poise and his leadership and his moxie on the field. We're seeing his athleticism, but we're not seeing that. We're not seeing all that he can become. He's a little scattershot as a passer. He's probably good for a fumble per game. Those are things that his game will clean up. There were times Saturday where he looked a little out of sorts, and it's a team that maybe he shouldn't look out of sorts with. But again, it goes back to maybe lethargic play across the line. He seemed to have rushers in his grill all night long that were rushing his decisions. There were a couple of times where it looked like he wanted to unleash the ball down the field, but just didn't feel comfortable. So he's holding the ball. There were a couple instances where he held the ball maybe a little bit longer than he should. So I think that we're going to see him grow and develop. So, again, I'm not pinning this on Jalen. I just think we saw a little bit of him being a freshman on Saturday, maybe more than we've seen in other games this season. And so that's kind of telling. Again, some of the play calling. This is a team where I would have guessed, especially when you watch the captains come out at the beginning, this is a team where you would expect us to just run out. This is like a Gene Stalling special. Alabama's just going to run the ball and sort of force feed the running game against a team that we're just going to out physical and outman. And we didn't do that. We did a lot of, again, stretching sideline to sideline, kind of the plays behind the line of scrimmage. I know Tom doesn't like those. I don't mind them, but you play an opponent like this, I think there is merit in just lining up and running the ball against them, and that we would have had a little more success doing that. Our Darius was missing, and so let's think about that as a potential cause. Our Darius Stewart, truly one of my favorite players, certainly on this team, has served as a little bit of a lightning rod for this team, and I think he's been something of a security blanket for Jalen. So, and that, to me, that was obvious very early in the season, very early against USC, where Ardarius has the opportunity to make those leaping catches going up for the ball and can be really, really aggressive. And that's something where Jalen can take a little bit of comfort. If I'm not spot on the money with my passing, Ardarius is going to bail me out. And Ardarius has missed time this season, but that was an injury. That was a known circumstance. The team knew, hey, we've got to rally around this missing player. We've got to support Jalen kind of through this process, if you will. This was sounds like maybe a conduct issue. Saban has been not really forthcoming, not that he should be, but he's sort of been a little cloak and dagger with what the issue is. But it sounds like it's not health. It's just something off the field, and that Ardarius, I suspect that he'll be back. But it's something that looked like a game-time decision. Ardarius dressed, had his helmet on the whole time on the sidelines, and he just never entered the game. And so you wonder if all of these sort of form a witch's brew. The team was a little bit tired, a little bit lethargic. The play calling probably could have been a little more aggressive, a little more physical. That impacted, I think, Jalen's performance a little bit at times during this game. Ardarius being out there, maybe on short notice, or not being out there, and maybe that being on short notice, which cast players into different roles or different lights with limited or lesser prep time. All of that, I think, is sort of a witch's brew of what we saw on Saturday against the Mocs. Another thing that really kind of stood out to me was the rotation at the running back. Damian Harris had 13 carries for 99 and a touchdown. And Jacobs only 5 for 17. Jalen had probably, I might say more carries than I felt really comfortable with. There were a couple of times they looked like design runs, and I would have liked to have seen us do something different with a ball. Maybe ones or twosies, maybe kind of 3 or 4. That's not heaping on angst there, but a little bit of thought process where maybe he could have had a fewer carries. And there were a couple times where he seemed a little flummoxed in the pocket. And again, I think that was protection up front that broke down, that he didn't feel comfortable pulling the trigger on some passes, and so he went to run. So again, I think there's a combo of factors at work there. What's interesting to me, what it felt like to me, is that we went with a really shallow bench, or the Tide went with a really shallow bench at the running back. Damian and Jacobs, Bo didn't play, probably could have played, and I read a couple articles where Bo was cleared to play and actually asked to play, but Saban held him out. He's got a little bit of a knee sprain that may hurt some of his lateral movement, and coach just wants to make sure he's healthy for the next two games, big games coming up with Auburn and then the SEC championship. And so that starts to make a lot of sense. What's interesting to me is what it starts to sound like, what it starts to feel like is, hey, we gave Damian 13 carries instead of maybe 25. We gave Jacobs, 5 carries instead of maybe 12 or 15. Some of that was time of possession. The Tide didn't possess the ball a lot. Some of that was the limited number of plays. But, we had a lot of 3 and outs too. And I think if we had pounded the ball on the ground, then some of that starts to come back, come back to the Tide, more plays, more time of possession. And so for my money, it felt like that we were trying to preserve. We knew that we had a shallow bench at running back. BJ Emmons is already out. Scarborough, we knew that we wanted to hold him out. So that gives you essentially two scholarship running backs, or at least sort of top shelf running backs. There's other guys, but those are the primary two. And so it felt like, hey, let's limit carries at the running back position because we know we have a shallow bench. And so what's interesting is, 13 carries to Damian, 5 carries to Josh, 16 carries to Jalen. And so are we running Jalen to preserve carries at the running back position? And if that's what you're doing, then I think your head's twisted a little bit, because we've got 2 running backs. And we got 1 quarterback. So not sure I buy in to that philosophy. I'm not exactly sure that's what we were doing. And again, it's always hard to tell with Jalen's run numbers, because how many of those are pure straight up runs? How many of those are RPOs where he's reading the play correct and his option is to run? And then how many of those are, flustered or pressure in the pocket that forces him out, versus a pure, Jalen, we're running the ball on this play with you. So again, something to watch there. And I know we've been watching that most of the season, and we'll continue to, but that's a little bit interesting. I'd like to get sort of full strength back at running back position. I don't know if we do this season with BJ Emmons being out, but maybe for the postseason we get him back. But I'd like to see Bo back. I'd like to see Bo get some more carries. I'd like to see Jacobs get some more carries. He had flash in sort of midseason where he just looked brilliant, and I'd like to see him get some more reps. This is a game against UTC where I would have liked to have seen him get 20 carries, 25 carries, and really just sort of blow it out, and he could have had a 150-yard day. I just think he's really dynamic carrying the ball. He may need a few more carries to sort of get his motor running, but he's a guy that I think has just a tremendous upside, and I'd like to see him get warmed up and tuned up for some of these upcoming games. Also want to talk about, we talked about this some last week, the rotation of along the offensive line. And so, Saban came out with a pretty interesting report this past week. I guess it was early last week, where he's talking about Lester Cotton, and he thought, Lester had been playing at a tackle position and then moved in to guard, and then sort of took over for Alphonse. Alphonse was going to miss some time at the beginning of the season, and then they kind of went back and forth, and then Alphonse got hurt, and looks like maybe he's going to be out for the balance of the season. His football career may be over, and so that's something we'll have to keep an eye out too. Hope that's not the case. But then Lester got a little dinged up, and last week he had to sit out, and so a combo of Corin Kerman and Josh Kasher played at the right guard position, and they kind of rotated a little bit. Well, Saban came out first part of last week and said, hey, we think maybe Corin Kerman is one of our best linemen, and that maybe Lester isn't developing at the guard position as quickly as we would have liked or maybe expected, and so we're going to move him back to tackle. And so I don't think he was even available to play. He may still be sort of shaking off some cobwebs from his concussion. But it was interesting that Saban came out and said that so declaratively. And then so we're in this game with Corin Kerman and Josh Kasher rotating. at the guard position, which again, that sort of eats into your stability at the line when you've got guys rotating. That can contribute to some ineffective line play, but it's hard to say that today after what we saw the Tide do against Mississippi State last week. So you think about Corin, Curvin, and Josh, and we just talked about Lester, but then you have in this game Cam Robinson goes down, and he's we talk about him being good for a false start every game, and he's missed some blocks, and we kind of get onto him a little bit, but he's still the best lineman that Alabama fields, and he's going to be probably a top 10 draft pick in the upcoming NFL draft. So dude's got talent. He goes down, looks like a shoulder injury. Corin Curvin moves from right guard to left tackle, so Josh Casher is sort of installed there. So now you've got sort of two different linemen in the game, and within just the next series, it feels like a handful of plays, Corin Curvin goes down with, ironically, a shoulder injury. And so just kind of pause right there. Saban has said that, both players – now at the stadium it was kind of interesting. Both players walked back to the locker room. And so it's kind of funny to watch where there's our starting left tackle go back to the locker room, and a few minutes later there's our backup left tackle going back to the locker room. And so there was a moment there where, well, who's going to play? Who is going to step in and play at the left tackle position? What do we do in sort of this situation? And and then they announce over the intercom that player and I forget the numbers, but essentially Brandon Green, a tight end, has a number in the 80s, 83, I think, is gonna change jersey numbers and wear 58, and so that's him moving from a tight end to more to an interior alignment position. And what I thought I saw at first, and so my eyes, I may have been deceived a little bit. What I thought I saw at first was Brandon Green at the left tackle position. On the next series, I watched it a little more closely, and it was Brandon Green at the right tackle, and it was Jonah Williams that had moved over. So I don't know. I should go back and sort of watch the DVR of the game, but I don't know if Brandon Green actually did play left tackle or if he came in at right and we moved Jonah over. I know that was the case in the second series. I can't definitively speak for the first series, but anyways, it was interesting to see that. And then I think I left the game almost with a sort of a pit in my stomach, wondering, how are those guys going to be? How are they going to be okay to come back? I was glad that it was the upper body. It wasn't lower body. It wasn't a knee or ankle or something that would affect their mobility. I'm talking specifically Corin and Cam at a tackle, at a blocking position. But still, you've got to use your arms and you've got to use your shoulders to block. The way it was reported, to me, made it sound like maybe it was a stinger. I don't know. I don't know that to be true, but it does sound like they're going to be back, and that's good. I know we've seen Cam play with significant injury. I think it was maybe last year, maybe it was 2 years ago. I can't remember now, but he played, I think, with a sprained knee against LSU after just sitting out 1 week, and actually acquitted himself pretty well. I think he has a high pain tolerance, and he's got a lot of personal pride in wanting to be on the field. So I expect Cam to be out there, and then we'll sort of sort out the left guard position. But I suspect Corin will be back as well, and probably rotating with Casher just like he has the last couple of weeks. So we'll kind of see how that plays out. Calvin Ridley, I think we got to talk about Calvin Ridley, and it's almost you can't separate talking about Calvin Ridley without also giving Jalen some praise as well. The down the field 47-yard strike touchdown from Jalen to Calvin was just a thing of beauty. He looked like Coker last year, kind of stepping back on a play action and throwing the ball down the field, and he put it right there in Calvin's bread basket. That's exactly what we needed to see. We tried a couple other passes down the field. They didn't hit in quite the same way, but that's something that certainly we can build off of in the game planning, put that on film, that he is a threat throwing the ball down the field, at least can be. And that's something that Jalen can really build his confidence on and Calvin as well, that he's going to be confident that he can run those routes and Jalen can feed him the ball. So I think that's absolutely something that we can that the team can build some confidence around. Garrett Dieter at the wide receiver position almost felt like he was the sub. He got some of the routes that our Darius Stewart would have gotten. And I have to say that Dieter has one of the strangest stat lines that I think I've ever seen. 3 catches for 1 yard and 2 touchdowns. Mathematically, I don't even know how you do that. And then that's when you insert the tape of Tommy talking about passes behind the line of scrimmage and losing yards and all of that. And so that's kind of funny as well. But at any rate, it was good to see Garrett. He's been a hard worker, and Saban talked about that in his press conference today. It's hard, it's hard. People want to project that he has been a little disappointing, and if you're going purely by stats, what he did last year at Bowling Green, and expecting him to repeat those, then yeah, I guess you're destined to be disappointed. He has been a hard worker. I probably would have expected some better stat lines from him, and so it's good to see him, kind of be rewarded, if you will. Saturday with 2 big touchdown passes, and touchdown passes on plays that everyone was expecting running, or certainly hoping that the Tide would run the ball. You could almost hear the gasp, at least around where I was sitting, when Jalen rolled out. But then everyone sort of a sigh of relief and cheer when we get the touchdown. So that was good to see. And then Cam Sims, 4 catches for 34. I like him being worked back in. And I think over the next couple of games, and I am sort of forecasting into the playoff as well, but I think with sort of some extra an extra camp and a couple of extra games, I think we're going to start to see more and more out of young Mr. Sims. My mini game ball. Who gets my mini game ball? I guess Tommy's not here, so in his honor, I'm going to bastardize the mini game ball just a little bit, and I'm going to go Damian Harris. Talked about him just a little bit ago. He came out very physical in the second half, and his touchdown run, when he saw the opening, and he had to beat the guy to the corner, but when he saw the opening, he saw the guy turned, and he knew that he could run and beat him to the corner, and went virtually untouched for the touchdown. That was impressive. And we're talking about a guy that for my money doesn't have top end speed. And I've kind of kidded that, the biggest story coming out of next August is going to be Damian dropping, 6 or 7, 8 pounds, and being lighter on his feet and a little more quick, a little more burst, a little more top end speed. And I say that so a little tongue in cheek, but also I wouldn't be surprised if it's true. But when he turned that corner, he did show a little burst of speed, and he's a guy. He reminds me a little bit of Superman, right? Because you see his interviews and he's got his glasses and he looks, very stately. But then you see him on the field and he is a hard-nosed, very physical runner. He's a young kid that I really do like, and I enjoy watching him play. So he's my mini game ball for the Alabama UTC game. Let's flip the field to defense. I am probably a little more conflicted on defense than maybe I am on offense. Defense, you think it travels well, and it does. And, it felt like for me that UTC did better than they actually did. Watching the game, it felt like they were a better team than they ended up being. They only scored 3 points, right? They had 34 minutes of time of possession, but like I said, only scored 3 points. Their starting quarterback was 16 of 20 of 21. It's 76% passing, a lot of slants, but he only had 106 yards and 114 total passing yards if you count the backup coming in. We didn't have any sacks on the quarterback, yet we knocked him out of the game. And so, Benefield came out with injury, watched him get worked on the sideline. They don't have one of those tents, and so saw him get worked on the sideline and try to warm up throwing the ball, and he just couldn't go. And so they brought in the backup. But, and again, we never root for injury, but Saban does talk about affecting the quarterback and dinging him so that he can't come in, qualifies. You don't do anything dirty. You don't. And in fact, it was a fumble situation. And so he went down to recover a bad snap and diving, players diving for the ball just caused his shoulder, his elbow and his shoulder to kind of get contorted. And so that's just one of those things you can't account for. You never want that to happen, but you want to be physical and you want to dive for the ball and you want to go, try to make a play. And that's kind of what happened there. They only had the ball for 54 plays, 184 yards, and so that's good defense. They actually had more yards than some teams than we've played this year. But still, that's not gonna set any records. They were only 2 of 13 on third downs, and so they had literally a couple of third down conversions, but defense was very effective. 2 of 13, you don't win those games. So the defense was very effective in getting off the field. That keeps the defense fresh. And then no TDs allowed again. And in fact, Alabama hasn't allowed a touchdown since early in the third quarter against Texas A&M. That's been quite a long time ago. This defensive performance, again, live in the game, it just felt like Chattanooga was doing more and doing better than they really were. But in the end, it was sort of a boring, methodical, sort of effective performance by the defense. I want to call out maybe a couple individual players. Reuben Foster, he went out at one point. It actually looked pretty bad the way that he was holding his arm, and looked like maybe he was holding his wrist. And so you wonder, what actually in the structure there is wrong. But he returned pretty quickly. It was a series or two later. He returned, and again, to me, it looked like maybe it was a stinger, a bad one. But he was able to come back and was very effective in his return. There were a couple of plays where almost back to back, he knifed into the backfield and just tackled the runner as he was getting the ball. Had that been a pass play, that would have been a sack. And then there was another play where he was trailing the runner to the sideline, and he didn't actually get the tackle, but he was just right there. And had there been 2 more yards, and he would have laid some wood as well. But Reuben Foster played really, really well, and it was good to see him come back from the injury, and hopefully he'll be able to stay healthy for the next couple of weeks. Someone alluded in an interview that he is playing with some things and overcoming some things. So I'm hoping that we'll get through Auburn, we'll get the SEC championship game, and then he'll have an opportunity to get fully healthy for the postseason. It did feel good, and this is sort of the riches that we feel as Alabama fans, that Reuben Foster goes out and Rashad Evans comes in. I had a little swell of pride that this is this is how good we are. We can bring in a guy that would be a starter for nearly almost any other team in the country, much less conference. Rashad Evans is that talented, and he's able to step in for Reuben Foster. And as much as I was proud and happy to see Reuben Foster come back, I feel every bit of confidence that Rashad Evans could play in that position, and that even a Keith Holcomb can come in. Now that's another sort of step of drop down, but that Keith Holcomb can come in and sub for a Rashad Evans over the course of a game, and I would feel confident in seeing that happen. Plus Holcomb. Damn, he just looks good in his uniform. He just looks like a football player. And so it's fun to see him out there making plays. Ronnie Harrison, this is a sophomore that just gets better every week. And I can't say that with enough emphasis. He seems, more and more comfortable out there, and just every week he's just better and better at making plays. And so he's certainly fun to watch. I would say, and I would call him a headhunter out there. And I mean that in like the old school football sense, rather than sort of the PC, today's sort of media world where that would be viewed negatively. He's not out striking people in the head, literally, and getting ejected from games in that sense. He's just out there laying wood and making people pay for trying to advance the ball. So Ronnie Harrison, he's a favorite, and he's going to be a player that I just encourage you to continue to watch. Tony Brown, I want to pick on him just a little bit. He was out of position a couple times very early in the game. In fact, I think the longest strike that UTC had was a play where Tony got a little out of position, and so he was promptly called over to the sideline. And then he was put back into the game, and he played pretty well, I think, the most of the rest of the day. I think that's something that he'll work on. I think Tony Brown has a lot of athleticism. He certainly has a lot of want to. So I think he'll pick up on that. But that's certainly something that happened. And we need to get that out of his game, and reps and film study. And those types of things will cause that to happen. Every time I see a player kind of get burned, and then I think they have the opportunity to sort of overcome that. It just reminds me of D. Milliner, his freshman year. I think he was making one of his first starts, and he just got lit up. I think it was against Arkansas, and lit up for like a 70-something yard touchdown. And I think that's the only time that ever happened in his career. He was able to come back and sort of learn from that and build from that. And so I'm hoping, Tony has a similar experience. I'm going to go mini game ball on defense, and I'm going to go Sean Dion Hamilton, 5 tackles. He's a guy that will perpetually be underrated given the other guys on the Alabama defense, but he's always sticking his head in there. He's always making a tackle. And it's almost like there's not enough opportunities for him to have a breakout day. But he's a guy that is sort of a workman player within the defense, seems to always be in the right place. There were a couple times he was even shifted out in coverage, and even when we had a nickel package, he would line up on one of the receivers. And so that demonstrates his versatility and certainly the confidence that the coaching staff has in him. So Sean Dion Hamilton, he's a guy that if he played for another team, everyone in the conference would know his name because he would be the star of that defense. Think if he played, pick a team, Mississippi State, he would be the star of Mississippi State's defense. He would be the guy that Saban gets up there and says, we've got to watch out for this Sean Dion Hamilton because he can get you. He can get you anywhere on the field. Well, he's just one of the guys on the Alabama defense, whereas on another team, he would be an all-star caliber team, and everyone in the conference would know about him. And he'd have a little bit of a national reputation because he would just be that good of a guy on another team. So anyways, SDH is my man. Special tems. I got a mixed bag on special teams. JK did what he does. I think he was snubbed by the Ray Guy Award Committee last week. Ironically, because I don't know that they came out and officially said this, but kind of looking at the metrics, it looked like that he did not have enough reps to qualify for consideration on the award, which is ironic, right? That he plays for a team that is so good, and that JK is part of the reason that the team is so good. And so some of the other punters that I won't be able to quote exact numbers. I think JK had 30-something punts, and there were other punters that they were in the 60s, and so you just think for a minute and you think, wow, 30 more punts. That's a lot. I mean, it wasn't quite twice, but it was 30 more punts. And so you think that's 3 more punts a game. That's 3 more possessions that sort of fall off the script. Those are scoring opportunities that you're getting and so you think, well, that's how Alabama's winning, because they've got 30, fewer punts than, the team with the next best punter. So to me, that's kind of funny, but definitely I think he got snubbed for the Ray Guy Award. But his performance against UTC, ironically, is a line that almost by itself should win him the Ray Guy Award. So the week that he gets snubbed for not having enough punts, the irony of irony, he has 6 punts, and he has an average of 49 yards, a long of 56. He has 4 inside the 20, 1 touchback, and 3 that are 50 plus. I mean, that's a punting stat line that is pretty darn impressive. And so JK does what JK does, and it's just so darn impressive to get to see him do that. Trayvon Diggs returning. I am not loving him as a returner, and I just have to say that. I like to see him with the ball in the open field. I love to see him, or I would love to see more and more of him as a receiver. But he just appears uncomfortable fielding punts, especially when the ball gets on the ground. It's almost like he lets the ball hit, and then there's some concern about fielding it, as opposed to maybe just stepping right up under it. I don't know what it is. It just, to me, from my seat, 49 rows up, he just appears uncomfortable. So we'll have to see kind of how that develops and how that how he improves there. But I'd say without a shadow of the doubt, that we're missing some Eddie Jackson there at the punt return. The kicking game, and here's just where I'm going to scratch my head. I probably looked at 50 different articles trying to find someone asking about this, someone writing about this, and I could not find Boo, which is really surprising, right? Because it was one of the big storylines of the UTC game. But Adam Griffith goes out and kicks two PATs, and then and boy, I hope I pronounce his name correctly, and grace if I don't. But Adam Papanastos, he's actually a transfer punter from Ole Miss. He had two PATs. What's interesting is that when Andy came in to kick PATs after Adam, Adam Griffith was one PTA away from setting away from setting the record, and so it's almost right when he gets to the record, we bring in the other guy, which makes me wonder if Adam was injured in some way. Andy, again, Papanastos, came in and kicked a field goal. Adam Griffith did not have a field goal, but Andy nailed a 33-yarder. And from the perspective of kickoffs, Adam has been performing very well in the kickoff performance. Well, he had two kickoffs, averaged 60 yards, 0 touchbacks. But J.K., the punter, came in and had 4 kickoffs, and he averaged 59, so right there in the ballpark. And he actually did have a touchback. And so it looks like we have a really good backup at the kickoff if that's needed. And maybe, it's hard to say with with two PATs and one 33-yard field goal, but maybe we got someone who can step in and kick field goals. The question is, the mystery to me is, and again, I probably looked at 50 articles today and I couldn't find Boo about it, but what's up with Adam? It wasn't asked in any of the interviews, any of the coaching interviews that I saw. It wasn't in any of the articles, but why was he sort of rotated out? Is there an injury? And we know last year he had some back ailments. Is there a reoccurrence of injury, or is this performance-based? And we've talked about this season where he's kind of struggled. Now, I think last week against Mississippi State, he was 3 of 3, and so it looked like maybe his performance was kind of trending the right way. But that's just something to keep an eye on. What's going to happen? Man, I'd really like to have some more stability at the position. At this place, at this part of the season, at this sort of critical juncture, and the increased significance and weight of the upcoming games. And so I don't know if we're just trying to see what we've got in the other guy, or if we're fighting through sort of an injury situation. So that will be a must-watch situation. So transitioning into next week, got a little game that we like to call the Iron Bowl against West Georgia's finest. The early line is 18.5 points, which, there's tall buildings in Vegas for a reason. Every time I see one of these lines, I just kind of shake my head. But then, and then I go, and then, we actually perform pretty well with the line, with the Vegas prognostication. So 18.5, it's hard to argue with it, but still, it's a big number, and you start to, I get a little uncomfortable when I see those kinds of numbers, but nonetheless, there it is. I think the variable, if you were to ask me kind of what's the determining factor in this game, it's going to be Auburn's health. They've got 2 running backs. They had a stretch in the season where they were just lighting it up, 300-yard rushing games, and they seem to kind of wear the tread off a couple of their runners. They've got 2 guys that are dinged, and then they've sort of rotated 3 different quarterbacks at different times during the season. I love Ryan Anderson in the interview today. He was asked about, how do you prepare for 3 quarterbacks, and he said, well, I don't worry about it. They can only play one at a time, and he's either only going to run or pass. So he just sort of distilled it down. Look, if I take care of what I need to take care of, it doesn't matter who they have back there. And so I like that focused approach, and I liked his answer, just kind of breaking it down in that way. But there is a reality that Sean White has been their best quarterback today, or this season rather, and he has been dinged up. I don't think he played much or at all Saturday against Alabama A&M, and he did play the week prior against Georgia and looked pretty limited. And so that will be interesting. I think that'll be sort of the tail of the tape. If their running backs are dinged, what level of ding, and then Sean White with his shoulder. And a shoulder is sort of an injury that if he's not truly 100%, he can come out and get sacked and really sort of revert back to or re-inflame that injury. And so that's something to kind of keep an eye on. And so I know some of our defensive linemen, if he's out there, I mean, they're always going to want to get after the quarterback. You might have a little more motivation to see if we can't knock out their quarterback. So we'll see. I'm going to pick probably 2 scores. If they are healthy, if they come with full health in this game, and I know I probably get some pushback from some of you guys, but if they come full healthy, then this is probably a 24-14 type game. I see them being able to move the ball. I see them being able to be balanced. Again, if these guys are healthy, with the run and the pass, and their defense is truly an outstanding defense. And so I think we would wear down their defense, but I do think they would be balanced enough to score some points. So I would see that more as a 24-14 type game. Now, if they're not fully healthy, and maybe they just get one of those running backs and he's not fully 100%, and Sean White maybe comes out, but he's not 100%, or maybe he gets sort of knocked out of the game, then their offense will not be as proficient in holding the ball and possessing and driving the ball, which will give us the opportunity. So they'll be less effective offensively. Then that will give us more possessions on offense, which I think would further sort of wear out their defense. And so if they're not healthy, it's really not a game, and I think it's more of a 37-6 type game. So the health of the Auburn players is really the single thing that I would encourage you to keep an eye on and see how that plays out. And just another sort of little nugget that I'll throw out there is, Auburn struggled mightily against Georgia a couple of weeks ago, and again, part of that was injured players, and so they've had this time to maybe potentially get healthy, but they struggled to the tune of just being atrocious. I think they had all of 12 yards in the second half. We can double check that stat, but it was an embarrassingly low number. And all of their possessions in the second half ended in a punt, which again, that is, 0 for the second half. And so what in particularly stands out to me is that's a Kirby Smart defense, at least in scheme, right? And so a Kirby Smart schemed defense is going to be, guess what? Pretty similar to a Nick Saban scheme defense. The only difference is the Alabama version is going to be more talented than what currently Georgia fields. And so I think there's a lot of things that Alabama would have been able to, the coaching staff would have been able to observe watching that Georgia film and how the Tide will line up similarly or differently than how the Bulldogs did, knowing that there's going to be some overlap in philosophy. So I think that's something to watch out for too. Again, 24-14 if they're fully healthy. I think it'd be hard pressed to say that they're going to be fully healthy, but if they were, and then if they're not, I think it's 37-6. And so maybe there's something sort of in the balance there if they get some of the guys back, but not all. But we'll kind of see how that plays out. Yeah, I think definitely looking forward to that game, and then the opportunity to play Florida again in the SEC championship. We'll come back after the Auburn game and after we break that down, and we'll talk about the SEC championship game. I've got I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I just want to hats like a triple hats off to fans really giving us some positive feedback on iTunes. Tom and I are just guys, right? I mean, we went to Alabama together. We were have been friends since college, and we we just love talking football. And one day we said, hey, let's just do this on a podcast, because we haven't found a podcast out there that really talks good Alabama football. And so it is very flattering and humbling and encouraging when we get positive feedback from the listeners. And so we just want to call out a couple of folks that are calling us out. And so we really appreciate it. Frank, I swear this is his call name, but it's Frank Effin Rizzo, like literally it's FN. But fantastic commentary. I've always been a big Bama fan, but in recent years, I've spent more time trying to learn the details. You don't get much watching ESPN. I stumbled across this podcast, and it's literally one of the highlights of my week during football season. I look at the game in a different way now because of the insights these guys provide. Keep up the good work. Well, thanks, Frank. We certainly appreciate that. Trio of Doom. I love that. Trio of Doom. He gives us 4 stars. That could be a she, so he or she. Bama's best inside stuff. That's awesome. Great commentary. I've been listening to these guys for about 3 or 4 years. They are dead on, and they were dead on in the aftermath of the 2013 Iron Bowl. Sometimes you would want these guys to make decisions for the team in certain areas. That's pretty cool. I like that. However, they are still not sold on the mobile quarterback. Even though college football quarterbacks have been mobile since the 40s. It doesn't matter, guys, when Saban's defenses are always ranked in the top 4. Defense wins championships. That is awesome. I agree with him. I feel like so he gave us 4 stars, which is awesome. We appreciate that. I'm going to pin that one sort of minus star on Tom, because Tom's a little more anti the mobile quarterback than I am. But I respect what Trio has for us here. And then this is Dr. Jay Joyner, essential listening for the Crimson Tide fans, and he gives us a 5-star review. And I like his kind of breakdown here. We need to have him on, because he's breaking down the show like we hope that we're breaking down Alabama football. But he says, I've been listening to Tom and Dave's take on the Tide since early 2015 season and never miss an episode. The back and forth banter between 2 friends who are longtime fans of the team is entertaining and insightful. The show typically comes out on Thursdays, providing, we're a little late sometimes, but typically comes out on Thursdays, providing both an in-depth review of the previous Saturday's game and a look into next week's action. Dave plays host and is reasonably, I love this, and is a reasonably happy Tide homer and lover of the rabbit nickel defense, while Tom grudgingly accepts winning but wishes for more smash mouth football and despises passes behind the line of scrimmage. I particularly enjoy the mini game balls, ostensibly awarded to lunch pail players who don't get, and his comment cuts off there, but he's talking, and I'm just curious what else he goes on to say, but yeah, he's pretty spot on his analysis there. I think Tom and I agree on a lot of things, and maybe on the podcast not all of that comes across, but there are fringes of topics where we don't agree, and we actually spend a lot of time on those in the podcast. But hey, I really love, and I know I speak for Tom too, greatly love and appreciate feedback. We absolutely enjoy doing this, and it's so much fun to see that you guys appreciate it as well, that we're not just talking into space, but that there's folks out there listening and enjoying what we're doing. So we really do appreciate it. If you're going to, I'm going to ask, hey, go out there and leave us some more reviews. Maybe give us a little grace if you don't like a one-man show versus the 2. But Tom's got some holiday travel that he's doing, and got some family birthdays and some other family stuff to attend to this week. And so it being the holiday week and it being coming off Chattanooga, we said, hey, Dave, let's let you kind of shoulder the load this week. And so a little grace if you didn't like the one-man show, but if you like what we do, go leave us a review. Go hit us up with some comments. I actually write an article every week. It's what I learned watching Alabama play, whoever that week's opponent is, and I put one of those out on Bama Hammer every week, and then a day or two later we actually post the podcast show notes out there. And so if you're not on iTunes, or if you don't want to not sort of an iTunes person, but you like what we do, then go leave us some comments and feedback on Bama Hammer. Let our editors know that you enjoy what we do. And like I said, I've got another article that I put out there, a little bit of overlap with what we talk about on the show, but it's sort of unfiltered my opinion on some things and what I'm learning as the tide progresses and the season rolls on. But hey, enough ramble about that. It's Auburn week. It's Iron Bowl week. And so let's get our heads on straight. We know that the team will be ready, and Saban will have the guys sort of coached up. And hope to see you guys in gals in Tuscaloosa rooting on the Tide. With that, this has been another edition of the Alabama Football Podcast. Roll Tide. All right, Brian. Didn't feel like that sucked too bad. Felt like I kind of got into a rhythm. Doing a one-man show, I'll tell you, is a lot harder than the other show, than when we're both on air, because I can just throw out a question and let Tom answer, and now everything I say I've got to sort of figure it out myself. But hopefully that didn't sound too bad. I definitely appreciate your feedback as well. But as always, we greatly appreciate what you do, and hope everything is going well for you. I don't know if Thanksgiving is a holiday in Canada or not. I think maybe it's just an American thing. I don't know. But hell, I hope you have a great week, whatever's going on. And I miss kind of talking to you before some of the shows, just what's going on in your life and school and stuff like that. So I don't know, just let us know everything's all right. I know you send us an email and say you've posted the show, but just let us know what you're up to these days. And hope you're well, and talk to you soon. Thanks, man. Bye.